They thought he was just another old man. But when disaster struck, his actions proved that heroes never truly retire. Before we begin this incredible story, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more tales of bravery, courage, and unexpected heroes. If you love stories that inspire and remind us of the strength in ordinary people, you're in the right place. It was an ordinary afternoon at the airport. Travelers bustled through the terminal, families rushing to catch flights, business professionals glued to their phones, and tourists excited for new adventures. Among the crowd stood an older man, a war veteran in his late 60s. His gray hair and slightly worn clothes gave him a modest appearance, but there was something about him, his posture, his calm demeanor, that hinted at a lifetime of experience. The veteran had bought his ticket weeks before, eager to visit his daughter and grandchildren across the country. He approached the gate, holding his boarding pass tightly. But as he handed it to the flight attendant, she paused and frowned. "I'm sorry, sir," she said with a tight smile. "It seems we overbooked this flight. We need you to wait for the next one." The veteran looked confused. "But I have a confirmed seat," he replied calmly. The attendant shook her head. "I'm sorry, but we need to prioritize other passengers. You can take a later flight." Around him, other passengers watched, some looking away uncomfortably. A few people whispered, "Why's he making a fuss? It's just one flight." The veteran sighed, stepping aside. His ticket was replaced, and he was left watching as others boarded. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply sat back in the waiting area, calm and quiet. But fate had a different plan. About an hour into the flight, chaos erupted in the air. Passengers were jolted awake when the plane suddenly shook violently. Overhead compartments popped open, luggage tumbled, and oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. A flight attendant's panicked voice came over the intercom. "Everyone, please remain calm. We are experiencing technical difficulties." Calm was the last thing on anyone's mind. Passengers screamed as the plane dipped sharply, losing altitude. Some clung to their seats, others prayed or cried. The pilots had lost control of one engine, and the situation was spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, back at the gate, the veteran was still waiting for his delayed flight when an announcement caught his attention. "Flight 231 is declaring an emergency. Prepare emergency teams immediately." The veteran's heart sank. Flight 231 was his flight, the one he'd been denied boarding. Without hesitation, he stood up, walked to the counter, and addressed the staff. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "I was supposed to be on that plane. I'm a former Air Force pilot, and I can help. You need to get me in contact with the cockpit." At first, the staff hesitated. Could this man really help? But something in his voice, the authority, the confidence, made them listen. Within moments, he was patched through to the plane's crew using airport communications. On board the aircraft, the pilots were in chaos. The lead pilot was struggling to regain control of the plane, sweat pouring down his face. Then, through their headphones, a calm voice cut through the panic. "This is Flight 231, do you read me? I'm a retired Air Force pilot. I can guide you through this." The pilots looked at each other, stunned. "Who are you?" The voice came again, steady and clear. "Call me Captain. I've handled situations worse than this. Trust me, and do exactly as I say." The lead pilot nodded, grabbing the radio. "We're listening." Back at the airport, the veteran, sitting in a small control room surrounded by staff, began to speak. His tone was calm, authoritative, like a man who'd faced impossible odds before. "First, stabilize the descent. Reduce power to the remaining engine slowly, don't panic. Trust the aircraft." The pilots followed his instructions step by step, their fear slowly replaced by focus. Now, listen carefully, the veteran continued. You need to glide the plane toward the nearest airstrip. The engine is gone, but you're not out of options. I've flown through worse. Passengers on the plane began to calm as the flight attendants shared quiet reassurances. The sudden jerks and drops started to ease. The voice guiding the pilots was their lifeline. On the ground, fire trucks and ambulances prepared for the worst. News of the emergency spread fast. Staff watched the radar screens anxiously as the plane made its approach, its remaining engine barely holding on. Inside the cockpit, the veteran's voice rang steady. You're doing great. Steady now. Keep the nose up on approach. You're almost there. As the runway lights appeared in the distance, the tension reached its peak. Passengers held their breath, gripping their armrests as the plane descended lower and lower. Finally, with a rough but controlled landing, the wheels hit the ground. A roar of relief filled the cabin. People cheered, cried, and hugged each other. The pilots leaned back in their seats, tears in their eyes. They had done it, with the help of a man they'd never even seen. When the passengers disembarked, news crews swarmed the runway. Everyone wanted to know how the plane had been saved. That's when one of the pilots stepped forward, holding a radio headset. We owe it to a hero, he said. A retired Air Force pilot who wasn't even on the plane. He saved us all. Back at the airport, the veteran quietly walked away from the control room, unnoticed by the crowd. He didn't need applause or recognition. For him, saving lives was what mattered. They denied him boarding. They ignored him. But in the end, his experience and calm under pressure saved hundreds of lives. It's a reminder that heroes often walk among us, unnoticed until they're needed most. If you believe that real heroes never retire, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share incredible stories of courage, strength, and determination every week. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and remember, sometimes the quietest people are the ones who make the loudest impact.